I think the lap of luxury is what we're sitting in right now, or at least what I'm sitting in. The lap of luxury. Welcome to the Nashville Money Guys podcast. We still don't have an intro. We are sitting in Brandon Rumbley's house up against his kitchen wall, sort of. Well, yeah.
Sort of a house?
Yeah, it's sort of a house under construction. Jason's was under construction last week. The space that we're going to be recording in at my house is under construction. This is what builders do. So today we're going to talk about Airbnbs because I think there's some really interesting speculative information out there, and we're just going to kind of go through it from our end and our experience. So, Dodge, why don't we talk about what we have as far as Airbnbs first? Like, give them the rundown, and then we can talk about how we did it and how we feel about the market currently.
So specifically, or just general, kind of what we're
probably just we have to decide how specific we want to get into on any of this stuff anyway. Like I want to probably give people more than all of us have been comfortable giving in the past.
Sure.
But like how many units we have, probably that's a good place to start.
So we started collecting Airbnbs probably 20
I think Second Avenue was our first one, right?
2015.
2015,
2015 or 16, yeah.
And currently, I believe we have 16 units.
17.
17?
17.
Yeah, because we added Myrtle.
Oh, okay. 17. We have more listings than that just because we can list them as doubles or a quadruple for 4 houses and stuff like that. But I think we have 17 then actual units.
Yeah, and that's actually a little tidbit. Like if you can get 2 side by side, then you can market them. So our max occupancy is 12 if it's a 4-bedroom house in the Nashville area, but you can actually put a listing out there that has multiple properties that is advertised for 24. So you can potentially snag some bigger groups as a result of that.
Which is nice because we've had like family reunions and stuff like that where it kind of books a little more frequently than I would have thought in that structure. So yeah, that's definitely a tidbit. I wonder how unique that is to Nashville as far as the structure of what we've been able to do with building them. So regardless, we've got 17 units right now. We built almost all of them, like all but probably Argyle.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and the other thing that I was thinking about, we don't compete with hotels. So we've got 1 3-bedroom unit, and then the rest of everything we have is like 4 bedrooms. So Rumbley, why did we decide to start doing the Airbnbs rather than just like continuing to sell? Because these were all new inventory, except for one house. Why did we decide to start keeping them and Airbnbing them?
Yeah, so I think broader strategy-wise, we got to a point where we were tired of paying taxes, and so we wanted to get as much of our income as possible into long-term capital gains territory. This is my ringer on my phone.
You need to let it go for a second. Let's just let the people hear.
My kids changed my ringer to this, and they think it's hilarious, and it sort of is. But anyway, it just keeps getting worse, so I'll stop it now. Broader picture-wise, we got to a point where we were tired of paying taxes, and so we wanted to try to keep properties, even if we were just keeping them for a short period of time, 1 year or longer, in order to move that income from ordinary income that's subject to FICA and Medicare and whatever ordinary income tax rate we ended up in that year to long-term capital gains tax rates. So we could only pay 15% on the earnings. So we started doing that initially with regular rentals. So we would build a house or rehab a house, put a tenant in that property for at least a year. Then if we chose to, we could sell it in a subsequent year and then pay the long-term capital gains tax rates. So we built 6 units down on 2nd Avenue, which is like a mile from Broadway and 2nd in downtown Nashville, kind of the hot spot for nightlife and all that. And so we decided kind of just as on a whim, because Airbnb wasn't huge at that point. We're like, let's just furnish a couple of these and throw them on Airbnb and see what happens. And those 2 today are our best performing assets just because they're so close to downtown and people see 2nd Avenue and know that's where they want to be. So then it kind of became, all right, this is a way for us to keep assets that normally would be priced too high as regular rentals. So most of our Airbnb, STR, short-term rental STR properties are 700,000 up to a million, 1.1 maybe for 11th and Meharry, somewhere in that ballpark. And you couldn't build those and get a loan and then actually make the cash flows make sense with a regular rental.
So basically it's enabled us to have high dollar amount of properties that are amortizing down that we're able to keep because people are willing to pay more every month to stay in them. I think one of the things that is different between what we're doing and what most people are doing, most people are just going out and finding a property and then buying it. We built these. Like every single one, literally except Argyle, the rental that we bought over by Belmont, we built them. So when we get done, we have instant equity.
In Argyle, we bought stupid cheap a long time ago.
Yeah, we bought Argyle in like 2010. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about like conceptually. So do you think it's a good idea for people to go pay retail and then furnish and then have a crap interest rate right now in this environment?
No.
I would say no. Yeah.
Perfect.
The end.
I'm glad we're all on the same footing. All right. So there are people who clearly have done this over 2021, 2022. There are lots of people. The inventory went through the roof.
I'll put a disclaimer on that, though.
Go for it.
Depending on your W-2 income, if you can sustain, if there's losses for any reason, if you get a 6.5%, 7% interest rate and you're just banking on that property being paid down in 30 years, then it's probably still an okay idea.
If you're going to self-manage, maybe there's more of an argument to potentially take that on.
Or if it's a property that like you want to go visit
or live in when you retire. Like,
right.
I want to live on the beach when I retire.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm thinking about this more in the context of like, is there going to be a bunch of inventory that's dumped on the real estate market because of the Airbnb crash? And I've been watching a lot of stuff on this and thinking about it. And what I wonder is how much pain are people willing to endure in the short run versus just saying, oh crap, my unit's not renting. I can sell it right now, but I'm going to have to cut the price by $100,000 to get it to move. Or are they going to just keep writing $1,000 a month check or a $2,000 a month check, hoping that the market turns around and maybe they can get it back?
Yeah, I think part of that equation is looking at the actual numbers, because a lot of your Airbnb gurus that are out there pushing it as an investment strategy, they are always talking about the gross, and the gross number is really good on a lot of these properties. But depending on the market that you're in and if you're managing or paying for management, your net gets whittled down really quickly. So in Nashville, where we are, we've got 9.25% sales tax and then 6% hotel use and occupancy tax. So now we're at 15%. Management, you're going to pay typically 20% on average. So now you're at 35% of your gross, and that's before you've done any debt service or paid for cleanings or furnished the properties and maintenance. And so it whittles down quickly.
35% of the gross. Like that's the big number.
Just right off the top.
Right off the top.
Any just normal property expenses.
Like literally last year, the government probably made more off of our Airbnbs than we did, is my guess.
They did.
But we have 30-year fixed loans on the majority of these because of the way we prioritized doing the financing a couple of years ago. We tried to roll as many of these things into 30-year fixed as we could.
Yep. And
this was before interest rates went apeshit like they have the last year and a half.
And it has allowed us to keep 17 properties that are worth $850 a piece. So we're looking at whatever the math is, $14 million in real estate that we were able to keep and hang on to. And the last year, our market's been pretty flat, but the 3 years before that, it was going up at double digits per year. So if you're looking at a 10, 12% increase on $14 million in real estate just for holding on to the real estate, then that's not a bad year. But you can't eat that equity, as we figured out over the years.
What I'm thinking about is market melt slowly or market crash. Because what the noise is market crash. Do you think that the Airbnb stuff can potentially cause a market crash, and maybe Steelman what type of scenario would create an actual crash when it comes specifically to Airbnbs? Because I can't figure out one.
So you're talking about Airbnb just goes through the basement. There's no demand for it, and all the property owners that bought these STR properties now have to flood the market. And
Yes.
yeah, oversupply causes price drops.
I would say regulations could come into play there, depending on the areas that you've bought.
Like Texas, Dallas,
just shutting it down.
Dallas just
Yeah.
shut it down. Okay, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
That could come into play. I would say, if we go into a recession and somehow travel just becomes not a thing, that could be, market dependent as well a little bit, just depending on where you are, I guess. Typically, we try not to rent to locals for the most part because
they shoot at our houses.
Shoot at our houses.
If you haven't watched that video, it's on the channel right now on our YouTube channel.
But I know that's true for a lot of places too. Like in Florida, they've said they don't rent to locals usually. So when we've gone, at least. So depending on local economy, what's going on there, if people are willing or able to travel. I know entertainment does usually well during recession. So like the booze industry and the movies,
like
do
all
great.
of Nashville's Second Avenue right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think if every property that's on Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever, if it all hit the market all at once, then yes, I think that's going to create some issues because there's a ton of units that are out there. But in reality, that's not what's going to happen. Like you're going to have 10% of people that did pay retail and they're underwater and can't make their payments, and they're going to go, yeah, we got to flood these and get them on the market. And maybe that causes a little bit of a blip, but then that's going to make it better for those people that stick around on Airbnb because now there's less inventory to rent. And
Also,
so their numbers are going to go up. So I think you're going to see that
that 10% will be over time. It's not going to be like 1 month everyone decides, bam, here we go. It's going to be over years probably.
Yeah, and I think like anomalies like Sevierville, where there's a huge Airbnb, like that's the majority of the inventory that's there of housing in general. So we're gonna take out those anomalies. Like I'm thinking kind of Nashville, Phoenix, Las Vegas, areas like that, and maybe even an area like Vegas. Apparently, their permits increased like an insane amount. Not the permits, the actual Airbnb units increased an insane amount last year specifically, which is weird to me. Like who was like, now's the time to speculate? I don't get it.
Or maybe they were just operating without permits, and then
They made them.
they said you're going to be in big trouble if you don't go get a permit. And everybody was like, maybe we should do that.
I feel like the stat that I heard is that Vegas still does not actually have a structured Airbnb permit system. So I can look. I'll put a little note underneath here. All right. I can't think of a reason either that there would actually be a market crash because of Airbnb. Because I think that people are not willing to admit, I will take $100,000 haircut right now. I think that people will literally do the best that they can to try to hold on to as much as possible. And I think that there are people who've over-levered and bought 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 properties. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's the majority of people. I think that you have guys like us that bought a lot of them. We would be willing to take a pretty significant haircut every single month to continue to just retain the properties and hope that the Airbnb market's going to come back.
Yeah.
Knowing that it probably will, and knowing that we have 30-year fixed loans and the amount of equity that we have in the properties. Like we literally could sell one of those properties and pay the bills for years with no income.
I think too, the question I wonder, you're asking, will and there be Airbnb cause a crash? Or I agree with you. I don't think that is going to happen. However, like, is it the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail type scenario? Like, does something else cause Airbnb to sell, hurt people that own Airbnbs?
Like if we go to a 2-front war, right? And all of a sudden,
I don't think Airbnb will cause a crash because, again, we are so undersupplied in the market already. Like anything hitting the market is going to get gobbled up pretty quickly. I would say even at these interest rates. I mean, we're still selling things, at high prices. So,
yeah.
There could be a pandemic,
But even that, like we saw, so that was interesting.
There is an election coming up, so
I think they're doing war this time. Yeah. I don't think it's pandemic this time. I think it's war this time. When even going through COVID, like we took a hit. We were negative that year right?
Yeah.
What did we lose? 80 grand?
80 grand. Yeah.
Did we
80
sell
grand.
any properties because of it?
We did not sell any of our properties. We gave up a few
We were arbitraging the apartments.
apartment leases.
That
we
was
gave
really
up.
interesting, actually. We should talk about that a little bit. So, Rumbly, what were we doing with that?
So we had 5 units that were in a apartment building downtown, and it was zoned commercial services, which was one of the zonings where you could get an STR permit. And the owner of that building said, all right, I don't really want to go operate a whole bunch of Airbnb apartments, but I can lease these to people and let them do it. And so I don't remember the exact numbers. I think those units were probably renting for $1,600 normally, and we were paying $2,000 or $2,100. So he was getting a $400 or $500 bump on rent, and then he would get secure the permit and allow us to operate those. So we were paying the lease payment, renting them out on Airbnb, and then arbitraging that spread to profit off of that.
So we bailed.
Yeah, we had to pay to furnish them. We had to have a 2-year lease, I think. So it had a buyout clause.
Yeah,
in
2
it.
or 3 with a buyout in it.
So we at the beginning of COVID, we basically exercised that buyout because we felt like we were seeing the writing on the wall, and I think it probably was a good decision.
I think it was
now
too.
we would like them, but
Maybe now.
Yeah.
But I think that the more I thought about those units too, we were competing with hotels.
yeah,
So like if it's a 1-bedroom, we're literally, there's hotels all around it, and this building was a lot crappier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad we bailed on those when we did.
Yeah, the hotel units, the bottom definitely dropped out during COVID. Like I remember we got a room at the Omni in Nashville for like $120 or something like that in the middle of 2020. Like it was, which isn't like today, it's a $500-$600 a night hotel.
Yeah. So I think to sum it up, like none of us can really see an actual crash created by Airbnb, but we'll revisit this topic, I think, a few times, because if inventory continues to climb, then any new supply that's added is obviously going to have a negative effect. But right now, like we're still booking well. We're not booking like incredibly well. We're down year over year, but it's not so, and we'll pull numbers at some point and kind of go through some numbers probably, but yeah, I don't see crash.
Agree.
no crash.
All right, no crash. Maybe slow melt. This has been the Nashville Money Guys podcast. We have no outro. This is Brandon Rumbly, Brandon McDonald, and Jason Dodge. If you're interested in hard money loans, if you're a fix and flipper, or what we really need right now is new lending partners. So if you're interested, reach out to us, NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. Thanks for watching.